Hello, everyone. I'm Jake Ramsey, co-host of the We Are CCA podcast. On this episode, we're talking to Ashley Boylan and Kevin Anderson of the Pennsylvania Game Commission, learning everything we can about careers as a game warden. Well, here we are, in studio podcast for the first time.
It's kind of awesome, really.
It's phenomenal that we've been able to sort of get back to this point. It's nice to have everybody in studio, and really appreciate you guys coming in to talk about careers with the Game Commission. So really excited about it. Just so that our audience can get familiar with you a little bit, we'll go around and kind of introduce who you are, what you do with the commission, and maybe a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, my name is Ashley Boylan. I work in human resources for the Game Commission. I'm the Recruitment Coordinator, and I'm in charge of coordinating the cadet classes and having them start for training to become a game warden.
Now, you just had a class either just start or getting ready to start, right?
We just had a class graduate the beginning of the month,
okay.
And we're having another class come in at the end of March.
They're starting at the end of March.
Yep.
How long does a cohort typically?
So it's about a 44-week process. The application process itself takes about a year. And then once they're accepted into the training school, then they're there for another 44 weeks.
Okay.
We'll
get into more detail about the process for sure. Absolutely. Definitely want to do that. And then Kevin?
Yeah, so my name's Kevin Anderson. I work in the training division at our academy, and I'm a training officer that helps to coordinate a lot of different trainings for our in-service officers, and then also our cadets when they're in residency.
And then you spent time working as a game warden, correct?
Yeah, I was in the field for about 10 years. I worked in Adams County when I got out of the academy, and then I transferred to Perry County in about 2013.
Yeah, so one of the real goals of the podcast today is to talk about careers, and specifically careers as a game warden. I think there's a lot of great opportunities, especially with the commission, and students just don't know enough about it. It is a law enforcement position. It is a law enforcement career. So it's something where when you're thinking law enforcement, maybe it's not something at the forefront of your mind, but after hearing this podcast and listening to you guys, maybe something that some of our students will consider. So just trying to bring some information so that our students can make some good informed decisions about what they want to do as far as a career. So the Pennsylvania Game Commission, we were talking before the podcast a little bit, 1895.
Yep,
it was
that's
established 1895. And the purpose of the commission is to do what? What's sort of the main role?
So the commission has a lot of responsibilities in Pennsylvania. We're the sole commission or agency that's going to manage like the wild populations of animals and then also their habitats. But within that, there's a lot of different kind of facets of the agency that work towards that main goal. Like with us, the law enforcement, we enforce and regulate different things. We have biologists that help and do different studies on animals and their habitats. We have people that work solely just with habitat and managing that for the wild populations. So overall, arching kind of goal is to manage the animals and the habitats for current and future generations. But each kind of person within the team of the agency and each different group kind of has their specified area of expertise.
Now, and this has always been something that I've been curious about. As I'm a lifelong outdoorsman.
Mm-hmm.
Been involved in hunting and fishing since I could remember.
Yeah.
So for me, this is a really fun and special podcast. So
Yeah.
we might have to cut this off at some point. I'm going to probably talk to you guys for a couple hours.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the commission, are they responsible for both game and non-game species, management of those?
So we're kind of unique in the fact that, we do, I wouldn't say maybe unique, but yeah, we do both. We definitely have a huge focus on the game species, but we also have folks that are employed with with our agency to focus on non-game species as well.
And a lot of the habitat stuff you do benefits non-game species.
Yeah, actually,
well.
a lot of our habitat improvement projects that different people do for our agency are focused on that habitat for the wild population. So that's where they focus their management on.
Ashley, from an HR perspective, can you talk about just the variety of different careers that are available with the commission? Because it's not just game wardens.
Correct.
It's, there's a variety of different departments, just like Kevin said. So there's
Yeah.
got to be a variety of careers
Right.
that sort of you guys are looking to hire.
So aside from just law enforcement officers, we have foresters, we have biologists, we have wildlife habitat crews. I think that's what they're called now. We used to call them food and cover. Yeah. They're responsible for maintaining the state game lands, whether it's the ranges or bridges, roads, anything like that. Then, of course, you have our clerical administration aspect of it, licensing division. And then we also have a brand new marketing bureau who is doing a great job promoting a lot of different programs and aspects of the commission.
Is Matt Moret's the head of that one?
Correct. He's the bureau director.
Yeah. Matt's anybody who knows turkey hunting knows
Yes.
Matt Moret.
Yeah, that name
Yes.
should be
Yeah,
familiar.
you should
for
know.
sure.
You should know that name for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So he's doing a great job.
So let's kind of get into sort of how you guys got to where you're at. I think it's interesting always when we have guests in to talk about paths, like how you ended up in the position that you're in. So Ashley, if you want to go first, just kind of talk about your genesis and sort of how you ended up at the Game Commission.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I had transferred to the Game Commission from another state agency, and it was just a stepping stone for me for promotional opportunities. And I started with the Game Commission in February of 2013. And I just fell in love with the culture, the agency, everything about it. And I really grabbed onto the cadet classes. I mean, that was something that I was just supposed to be assisting with, and I just loved the whole process, and it was just given to me saying, here you go, you like it, here's your program. And I've been doing it ever since, and I really enjoy it.
And you have a college degree?
I do not.
You do not?
Nope,
Okay, great.
I do not. Nope. I graduated high school and started working right out of high school. So
Can you talk about that a little bit? I think that's maybe important for some of because only 30% of our students we find that, end up graduating college.
yeah, I graduated from high school, and I actually moved out to Arizona for a little bit. Just kind of had fun and just relaxed and did whatever I wanted to do. And then I moved back to Pennsylvania. And just started working. I started out as a receptionist at a vet clinic, and I went to a law firm then, was a receptionist there for 2 years, and got into the state and just worked my way up. So
Awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't hear that a lot. I mean, I don't think people talk about that a lot.
Right.
It's just college, but there are, with a lot of dedication, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
And then making good decisions for
Yes.
yourself and kind of showing that you're a lot of skills. And
Yeah.
kind of building on that and just kind
Yeah.
of working your way up.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, you put the pieces of the puzzle sort of start to come together, and you end up, working in HR with the
Yep.
Pennsylvania Game Commission. It's fantastic.
Yes, it is.
Now we found out before the podcast
Yeah.
that Kevin and Ian have a little special.
Yeah,
like,
we have the same alma mater.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's
Like-
a small world for sure. Yeah.
It's a small school. I'm sure we must have crossed paths.
Oh, I know we
I'm
did.
sure, yeah.
I know we did. I think we were in some of the same classes.
Well, yeah, a lot of
honestly.
science classes.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
science classes.
Yeah, so I went to DeSales University. I majored in forensic biology. Graduated from there in 2008. I started the process for our academy class as a senior in college. So I remember on my spring break, I went and took the written test for this position. This honestly wasn't always like what I was, destined to do in some regards. I kind of wanted to do law enforcement, and I was taking tests during my senior year of college for like your more traditional style law enforcement jobs. And my grandfather, funny enough, he saw some sort of advertisement about this job, which I had never really given it a thought before. And I looked into it some and decided it kind of like had everything I was looking for, the law enforcement aspect, but also kind of the arena that you're doing it in and the outdoors and stuff really spoke to me. So took the test my senior year of college, and here I am. So
Yeah, so like, but why? What connected with you? You said it was the different arenas and things, but like,
yeah. So during my college time, DeSales is not. I think some people from different areas would consider it more rural, but for me, growing up in Perry County, like in the middle of the woods, like it was kind of a more populated area.
Oh yeah, as a Perry County person myself,
Yeah,
yes,
you
very
know what I'm
much.
getting
Yeah, oh yeah,
at.
absolutely.
So
I drive to Harrisburg and get like the too many people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So, like during my time down there, I did at DeSales, I did an internship with the Montgomery County DA's office, and I got to work in some different areas that I've never experienced before, and I just found that the outdoors was kind of more my calling. I always grew up in the outdoors. My family, they always hunted. I hunted from a young age, and this agency, the Game Commission, just kind of brought that all together for me. Like I was able to work in the areas that I've always enjoyed, and do law enforcement, which is what I've always wanted to do.
So what do you do as a game warden? What
That's a
do
good question. I get
like
that a lot,
what do you do?
Yeah, so
Other than riding around on your black black vehicles,
everyone just thinks we drive around in trucks and do whatever. Honestly, the job of a game warden is very varied. There's definitely the law enforcement aspect of it, but a game warden, when they're assigned to a district, they're like, I wouldn't say the sole, but like the major person who does all of the different duties that the agency wants done to kind of get towards that goal that we talked about in the beginning. And that includes, in addition to law enforcement, like education of the public, helping the public with wildlife nuisance questions and problems, different things like that. Recruitment for deputy positions that we have, our deputy game wardens. I mean, the amount of responsibility that a game warden has is varied with a whole bunch of different agency programs. So it's not just, if you want to make an analogy to something, it's not just sitting along the highway, running a radar gun for speed. It is a plethora of different things that you get involved with and that you're responsible for.
So can you talk through, say, during it's a typical Pennsylvania fall, week, right? Can you talk through some of the interactions that you have
Sure.
typically?
Yeah. So it's just to put it in perspective, a typical game warden district, so patrol district, is about 350 square miles on average. Some are bigger, some are smaller, but it's a huge amount of land to basically patrol and do all your law enforcement activities. So we're spread pretty thin so in some regards. So we try to do the best we can, but it can be a little tough sometimes. But typical, if you want to call it typical day, I don't know.
I'm sure there isn't one. Just the different types of like the different types of calls, the different type, some of the investigations.
Yeah,
like, what are some of the things that you guys are doing on a day to day?
So we definitely get a lot more of our law enforcement calls during the hunting seasons, obviously, and those range from a lot of different types of, if you want to call them complaints from people, but it's just a plethora of different things dealing with like trespassing or illegal or unlawful takes of any sort of animal, either the way that it's done or what they're actually taking, like an animal that's not in season or sublegal, etc. But we also deal with search and rescue incidents on our game lands. Our officers have the authority to enforce, possessions of drugs, DUIs, all those different things that a traditional police officer would do. We do the same stuff, in addition to kind of the things that are more focused on our agency, dealing with wildlife, hunting, trapping, etc. You may have a day where you're on foot patrol in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, checking hunters for compliance with whatever is in season. So making sure they have the correct safety equipment on, are utilizing the correct firearm, have the correct licenses, all those things. And then the next day you might actually be on a patrol boat in the middle of the river doing the same thing, checking waterfowl hunters and doing that sort of stuff, or assisting with a rescue of some sort. It's the different types of things you get into is just huge.
Is that unique to being a game warden, or do you feel like what is it? How does, say, working in law enforcement for the Game Commission differ than working for law enforcement with your local municipality through local police, state police level?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you interact with other law enforcement.
Sure.
How is it different?
I think one of the big things that is different between us and your traditional is, I feel like traditional policing is normally like call based. Like, a call comes into a dispatch center, this is happening right now, we need an officer to go there. And that certainly happens with us, but our officers are also tasked with being more proactive, where they seek out interactions with hunters and fishermen and other people who are, recreating and conduct what we call a compliance check, because part of the thing with our work is to make sure everyone has the correct license and doing everything that they're supposed to. So there's more of that interaction probably on a level that's not as the same as like a traditional, municipal or state police officer would deal with. Because there's just that general conversation, hey, how's it going? And you check your license, those sorts of things. And that's a little different than when you're going to a call for like a domestic or some other sort of thing that's happening. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I've always found it an interesting aspect to what you guys do, especially, during the hunting season, is when you interact with that person, whether it's a compliance check or you're going out on a call, that person's carrying a firearm. A lot of times. And it's known, it's understood. It's, a lot of times it's loaded. And so, is that something that you in your training that you're constantly making wardens aware of, or is does it add a level of, just, I don't want to say danger, but a level of caution to some of these interactions?
It depends. So, like, it's traditional for our officers to interact with people with firearms. Like, that's just how it is. So are you a pheasant hunter?
I have been.
Okay.
I've known to miss a few. Yeah.
Okay, good. As most people do. So, like, if I would encounter you out in the middle of a pheasant field hunting, like, the fact that you have a shotgun with you, it's kind of normal place. And everything's fine. But if I encounter you at like 2 a.m. and you just shot at a deer from the vehicle or whatever, and you have a firearm, things are a little bit different. So to answer your question, sure, we train our officers to be aware of the dangers that they can encounter with that sort of thing, but it's very specific for the situation. I'm going to address that firearm differently with you than I am with that other person that I just mentioned.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And you guys cover that in training, I'm sure. It's something that you guys go over.
Very extensively, for sure. Yeah.
When I was growing up, my dad would get the Pennsylvania Game News, still does, every month, and read it from cover to cover. But there's a section in the Game News. It's notes from the field or something like that. It's called Field Notes. And I used to love reading those because some of them were hysterical. Some of just the things, the situations that game wardens find themselves in is really interesting to me. If you had to write a field note story, do you have one? Have you ever written one that has been in there? Okay. I may have read it then. But
most of the time the field notes, are kind of
just a funny interaction. Like we
screw ups.
Yeah. Well, we
messed up.
well, yeah. Well, but we've also heard, like, I heard read stories about there was a woman in Sullivan County that used to like take bear. She had a bear that would come in. She'd put it in her car and drive it around Sullivan County.
Yeah.
Just
I remember
those
that.
kinds of funny stories.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have one that just a funny interaction, like a fun one that you're like, man, that was. Looking back on it's hysterical.
All right. Can
You
we
don't-
circle back around?
we might have if we can, we can.
Think
Yeah.
about it. I'll have to think about it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what you guys are doing in the off season.
Yeah, so we get that question a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
like,
because,
do
I mean,
you work 3 months out of the year or what?
Definitely not.
no.
I'm
No,
assuming.
definitely
I'm
not.
assuming
I know that they
No.
don't because I've seen them out and about. Yeah.
Yeah, so we get that question a lot.
Oh,
Is like,
sure.
what do you do outside of hunting season? And there's still a lot of like things that an officer has to take care
what I
of.
assumed, yeah.
We tend to get a bigger influx in like your nuisance wildlife calls. So in a couple months here, there's going to be a lot of bears coming out of hibernation, and they tend to cause a lot of issues. Just kind of conflicts with the general public, and our officers help to take care of those as best we can. The game lands are so in Pennsylvania. I think the Game Commission has roughly 1.5 million acres. Is that where we're at right now? So all that property, which is open to public use, is managed by our agency, and there's specific regulations and laws that what you can and can't do on our properties. So during the summer months and the spring, et cetera, officers do law enforcement patrols on there to take care of whatever issues are going on. Drug use, unlawful ATV use. I mean, we have all sorts of things that occur on our properties. So there's still that law enforcement aspect too. Our officers assist other agencies in different things too. So Fish and Boat Commission, some of our officers will work pretty closely with them to do, patrols on the rivers, creeks, etc. And then there's also our officers in their patrol districts manage and kind of administer our hunter education program. So students who want to become hunters have to go through a hunter education class to become certified, and our officers manage those classes and help with those. And then other educational things that are happening within the district, school programs, different kind of like sportsman's club meetings and stuff like that. I mean,
you guys just had a busy week at the Sportsman Show.
Yeah. I mean, our officers are working down there.
I saw the Instagram feeds all week.
yeah?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
That was really
Yeah.
great that you guys were doing that. That was awesome. There's a lot of
Yeah.
great information on there.
Yeah. So our workload, it doesn't really change. Everyone thinks we have like the slow season, and in some regards it might be a little bit, but it's just the work changes. The amount of work is still there, but it just
shifts.
what you're focusing on shifts a little bit.
Which is kind of true for most jobs anyway. I mean,
I would think so. Yeah.
different seasons. I mean, we're in the school, so you got the school year, and then you got the non-school
Exactly.
year.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
the school year,
That's
but
a
we're
good
all
point.
busy.
Yeah, I was gonna say the summer
Yeah.
does not slow down here
Summer
at
does
CCA.
not slow
Yeah.
down.
No.
No.
I can only imagine.
I'm wondering the difference between because Pennsylvania is pretty diverse. I mean, it's got a lot of woods, but it also has. We've got Philly,
Yeah.
Harrisburg and Pittsburgh, and I'm sure there's probably a game commissioner responsible for those
Yeah.
districts as well. How does that
Yeah.
differ between like urban, rural, suburban?
That's a good
Or does
question.
it?
So, yeah, we have at least one or two game wardens in just about every county in the state. And you're right. They're depending on where you are in reference to your population. Like your job as a game warden is going to be different. I can't speak for sure for some of these more populated areas because I never had to work in a super populated area, but just kind of on the fringe, what I can understand is, there's a lot more calls from the public for assistance with different things.
Like nuisance probably calls and
Well,
stuff.
nuisance, but also just kind of like educational in some regard because, like a simple example could be, you take someone from, let's just say, Potter County, like up north, and they're having an issue with a bear, saying, getting into their trash can and causing issues. They may already have kind of some knowledge and understanding of what to do to alleviate that problem.
Okay, yeah.
But now we take that same scenario and go to Bucks County or wherever. There may be, they probably never had to deal with that before, and they may, be calling, be like, hey, what do I do here? Like, I'm having this issue. So I feel like maybe that could be a big difference between, non-real populated area and a real populated area.
A lot more education,
sense,
a lot more information.
Yeah, just helping folks out with whatever issue they're having, for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, while you think about your story, and
really
we're gonna shift things over to the HR professional in the room.
Yeah, for sure.
I actually have a story about people in populated
Please
areas.
share.
Yeah,
Please
go
share.
for it.
So
Don't hold back.
My mom and dad are both deaf, and so they live in Lackawanna County. And my mom called me one time because it was dark. It was after 7 or something like that, and they got out of the car and went into the house, and not even 2 minutes later, this bear came walking right in front of their house and grabbed their garbage. And my mom has those Ring doorbells, so she took the video and she sent it to me, and my reaction was like, oh, cool. Like, I didn't, great, you have a bear, I don't know. And my mom freaked out, and she's like, well, we can't hear. Like, what if it was 2 minutes later and we got out of the car and we couldn't hear that bear? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. So
tell her that you don't hear them anyway. They are so quiet.
Yeah.
As an animal, they will.
Yeah.
They sneak up on you. You just they are so quiet for being such a big, at times a very big animal. They are so stealthy moving through the woods. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I had to call the local game warden up there and say, hey, he saw a trapping on it. So,
oh man,
yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the recruitment side. How what efforts are you guys at the commission sort of doing to recruit people like Kevin into the field?
So we are heavily using our social media right now to try to push that out. We reach out to local or any of the colleges and universities in the state. We try to get the word out there as much as possible. We list it in Game News, our website. We actually have the posting open right now. Unfortunately, it closes tomorrow. So it's out there on the OA's website or our website where people can go out and apply directly to that posting. So
it's also on the CCA job board. So
we
have an internal job board that we have shared with our CCA community. So
awesome.
It's on there as well. It's been on there for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it opened on January 18th. So
yeah, I saw I got an email. I guess I'm on a newsletter or an email distribution list for the Game Commission somehow, some way, and I had it in an email.
Oh, good.
And as soon as I saw it, it's the day I contacted you about doing the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, same day. Yep. Okay. So I put it on the job board. It's there. Yes, it's closing tomorrow, but at least our CCA students and families have been able to see it.
Right.
So
good. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Any way we can help spread the word. When you're going through the process, you said the application is a year, then the training program is 44 weeks.
Right.
Can you talk about just sort of from A to Z, applicant to
Sure.
Game Warden?
Yeah. So the first step obviously would be to apply, submit your application, and it all depends on how those applicants are going to qualify. There's different. If they're going to qualify through 60 college credits, they would need to upload a transcript to their application. Military service obviously would be a DD-214 that they would have to attach as well. And a lot of errors that I've been facing this go round is that not a lot of people are aware that they have to submit 2 years of a hunting license. So that is a requirement that they have to have. So that's kind of a back and forth issue of not attaching that to the application. But so after the application, they have to take the written exam, and that's through a company called Prometric. but civil service would send the email out and give them the instructions on how to schedule themselves. And then those who score high enough on the exam are invited back to what we call phase 1, and that's basically the PT assessments. And they are tested on the 1.5-mile run, 300-meter run, push-ups, sit-ups, bench press, vertical jump. And there's a standard that they have to meet, and that is different between males and females. So we have our standard numbers out on our website. So,
Okay.
After the phase 1, that's when we start the background process, and that's a very in-depth, lengthy process. Those that pass the physical part are sent an application that they need to complete, which is very, I don't know if you want to say invasive, but we're asking for a lot of information, birth certificate, social security card, all that stuff. So once we get that back, I basically review everything, and then I send that out to one of our investigators to begin that investigation. That takes several weeks. Usually that time starts around July, and we're wrapping up like the end of September.
Okay.
To get those back. Those who have a clean record and pass the background process, are invited back to the face-to-face interviews with some of our executive staff. And then if selected from the interviews, they move on to what we call phase 2, and that's the medical portion. So they're given a conditional offer of employment, and then they have to pass hearing screening, vision screening, urinalysis, drug test, a swim test, and then a psychological evaluation.
Okay.
And then that brings us to pretty much the end of the year. And then in January, they're given a official acceptance letter and given instructions on when to report to the training school.
Is this pretty typical of law enforcement positions?
I don't think so.
No, okay.
I mean, I know that obviously your background check is most likely going to be the same, but I think our application process, as far as the different physical assessments and maybe the medical assessments, it might be a lot lengthier than your common municipal police office stations.
Okay. And you said 2 years of a hunting license.
Yes.
So that is a requirement.
It is a requirement. We can accept licenses from out of state. Doesn't have to be Pennsylvania, and we don't need consecutive years. So if you can prove that you've held at least 2 years of a hunting license at any time, then
Can I that requirement, is there a particular reason that requirement's in place?
I think we're just looking for people that have familiar knowledge with, being an outdoorsman or woman and having that hunting experience. I think a lot of misconception that I've been facing is a lot of people don't realize that this position is a law enforcement position.
Yeah.
I receive a lot of phone calls, a lot of applicants that end up dropping out because they don't realize how much is actually involved. I don't know if they're thinking that it's more, they're going to be driving around the game lands and looking for deer or looking for bear. I'm not really sure, but a lot of times I will get the question, oh, do you have to carry a gun? Oh, is this, do you have firearms in the truck? And yes, this is a law enforcement position. So I think that's a very common misconception to the public out there of what exactly they're dealing with out there.
So if you were to put together like a perfect candidate for this particular career, what would the characteristics, attributes, skills, like what are some of those things that you would put together to make a good game warden?
I think he could probably answer this a little bit more.
Okay.
But I know that.
She was going to default to you.
I know in the beginning, obviously, we're looking for, a clean record. I mean, we don't want your common poachers out there, obviously, being a game warden. No one's perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. So just because you might have had, let's say, a DUI a couple years ago or anything like that, that shouldn't deter any applicants from applying. If you have excessive DUIs or, it all depends on, what your criminal record shows. But obviously we want a clean record, someone with good integrity and
Oh yeah.
dedication, passion helps, for the for the position. But he could probably answer a little bit more about that.
Sure.
She defaulted to you,
Yeah.
so here you go, putting you on the spot.
I've lived it.
He's
so
the
I can-
professional.
I can
Yeah.
probably talk about it
Yeah.
at least a little bit. So obviously I work in the training division now, and I deal a lot with the cadets when they finally get to us.
Yeah.
And you identify attributes of cadets that are going to hopefully make them successful when they graduate and get to a district. So one of the things to remember is that as a game warden, you're basically working. You don't report to a central office every day. You're kind of like a satellite person from a regional type of supervision. So we need people who are independent but can take orders and do a job and do it well without a lot of oversight and supervision. The types of people that are really successful in our agency are normally very organized because they have a lot of different responsibilities that they have to prioritize work and accomplish whatever goal they need to, and they have to do it independently. So they're organized, they're independent, they're driven, they're motivated, proactive, a lot of integrity too, because we can't have people out there that are only doing the right thing when someone's watching. We need them to do the right thing all the time.
Yeah.
So those types of people are normally pretty successful, and this type of like the field warden job requires a lot of public interaction. So this isn't necessarily like a skill that you have to have when you enter the academy. Like we can teach you how to refine your public speaking skills, but being able to talk to people, like just talk to them as a human and interact with them, like that's super huge. Like we have officers in the field, had officers in the field that didn't do so well in that regard, and it caused them issues during their career. So really being able to just talk with people and have that human interaction is huge.
I mean, I've never had anything but positive interactions with game wardens. I mean, it's just been.
Well, that's good. That's
good. And it is one of those things. It's kind of like when you drive. You drive past a police officer on the side of the road. You're like, oh, check the speedometer. You automatically hit your anxiety goes up a little bit. You're like, oh, am I doing all the right things? Yeah. So you sort of, as a hunter, you sort of have that same feeling when the big black Tahoe pulls up beside you with the game warden emblem on the side. You're like, uh-oh. And most of the time it's like, hey, how's it going? What are you guys getting into? Do you mind if I check your license and your firearm? All that stuff. And it's never been just the way that a lot of times the way that I'm approached puts me at ease, right? Like I don't think I did anything wrong, but maybe I was, you just never.
And that kind of speaks back to like when you asked me before, the difference between what our folks do and then kind of your traditional police is you normally don't have, I shouldn't say normally, but traditionally you don't have an interaction with a traditional police officer unless you've either done something wrong or something bad has happened.
They don't pull you over to see if you have a driver's license.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, have a nice day.
So normally when you see a uniform coming towards you, you're like, uh-oh, what did I do?
Yep.
And that kind of feeling spills over into our arena. But most of the time, if we're interacting with you, we may, meet you in the woods while you're hunting, and it's not because you did anything wrong. It's just because we're out patrolling and we're checking to make sure everyone's doing the correct thing. So, but you still get that little bit of uh-oh.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, even when you think you're doing everything right, you just want to. And again, a lot of times it's in how you're approached.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're approached in a way that shows respect and keeps you at ease and it doesn't escalate the situation. Everything, the interaction is overwhelmingly positive in my opinion. And I've like I said, I've had nothing but good interactions. I haven't been checked very often, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
More now. I started hunting a piece of public land, and a little bit more now. Okay. Now that I'm on state game lands a little bit more. Yeah. But the interaction's been nothing but positive. And it was funny because like when you were talking, about being independent. Being able to be accountable to yourself. I'm thinking to myself, well, this is all CCA kids. Like I'm thinking
Yeah.
CCA students
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
you know they're self-accountable,
Okay.
right? They manage their education,
Yeah,
they make
yeah,
choices,
makes
you know, with their
sense, yeah.
schoolwork all day. You know, they're solely responsible for, especially our high school kids. You know, parents have oversight for sure, and caretakers have oversight, but not sort of over the student's shoulder all day long. You know, they have to be accountable to the lessons. They know what needs to be done. You know, when they log in every day, there's a list, and these are the things that need to be done today. These are the lessons that need to be done today, and they work through it at their own pace, at their own discretion. You know, when it's, you know, in the way that they want to, and what they have learned has been successful. And then from a time management standpoint, you know, they're learning all that too. But then that doing the right thing when no one's looking,
Yeah.
right? I think that's something where our students learn that level of integrity real fast, because, you know, you think sometimes the common misconception is that cyber school is that there's a lot of fraud that goes on, you know, and that's not the case at all. Our students are very diligent and very honorable in the way that they handle their schoolwork. So, like, as you're describing it, I'm thinking, man, that's like what we, I think that's what we teach at CCA. Not just the, you know, mathematics and English and all those skills, but also just those transferable skills to the job, you know, and making them ready for the workforce. And like I said, when you were describing that, I was like, that's everything that we do.
I know, yeah, and that's a lot of the soft skills too that really are transferable to any job. You know, even if it was,
Right.
you know, vet tech. You know,
Yep.
you know, you can use those sorts of skills. I'm wondering how we can kind of start to foster student interest, because you mentioned like you have to have a hunting license, which kind of demonstrates that you have an interest in being outside and maybe being a game warden. What sort of activities or hobbies, or what how do you foster that interest in young individuals to kind of get them to the point where they are out as a game, you know, applying really?
Is this going to be mine or yours?
Well, the only thing that I have never hunted in my life, you know, just because, I mean, this is a different, obviously, a position.
Different role,
But,
right.
yeah, I think that's something that.
Yeah,
You could
so
probably-
I will say that not all of our officers came into the academy as like these lifetime, really hardcore hunters that were, you know, out every chance they could get hunting, etc. In fact, we have some officers that, you know, just kind of on the fringe of the hunting activities that have been attracted to our agency and went through our academy. The agency actually has a fair amount of programs that can help with if you're interested in getting into hunting and different things. We have like a mentored youth hunting program that they can utilize, where if they know somebody who's a hunter, that they could possibly go with that person and you know, learn about hunting and learn about different things.
In my opinion, one of the best things that you guys have done at the commission is establish that mentoring program.
Okay.
I mean, it's as far as getting, I mean, my son has taken advantage of it the last couple of years. And I don't think without these early opportunities, I mean, I remember like biting my nails waiting till I could like go get my license at 12.
Yeah.
And if I had, you know, and it was just something that I love to do, but for some kids, and I look at my kids now, it's, you know, we're in sports every weekend. We've got, you know, our weekdays are full of practices and school and activities. And, you know, it's sometimes difficult to find time to get out into the field in the fall.
For sure.
And if without that early exposure through the mentor program, I don't know that my son would be as interested as he is now. This year, I asked him, you know, hunter safety. He's like, "Yep, sign me up."
Okay.
He wants to be a licensed hunter.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that would have happened without the mentor program. I really don't. I really don't. So, I mean, I know this isn't really maybe the platform to express that, but I'm telling you, one of the best things that you guys have ever done.
Yeah. Yeah. So utilizing that sort of program can be a good kind of catalyst to get some of that interest. But I mean, while the agency focuses on hunting and trapping, etc., like there's also a lot of other activities that you can just kind of appreciate wildlife and understand why it needs to be protected and why there is an agency like ours to do that. So I just recommend, if kids are kind of interested in this sort of thing, find something that's in nature that, you really appreciate. Like, I remember a cadet came through our academy years ago, and he actually lived up in New York. I think he grew up in Yonkers, maybe. I can't remember. So his exposure to a lot of like wild places was very limited. But I remember he made an analogy with his appreciation for wildlife and different things from his backyard or whatever small park or et cetera that he had access to. And to him, going and seeing just what we would call a typical songbird, like we might see and take it for granted, he would see these things and really find the appreciation in that, and that kind of started his interest in this sort of thing. So I don't want your students to be deterred if they don't grow up in a hunting family. Like, you don't have to, but there should be an appreciation for the wild things that we have in this state, this Commonwealth, and the fact that maybe you want to step up and help to protect those things for not only your generation, but the people that come after you.
I've never been, but I've heard that going up to Benezet in September to watch the elk.
Yeah,
we do have a wild elk population here in the state. Reintroduced back in the 30s, I believe it was. I think I saw it on Instagram. I think it was like 1939, or I think that's what it was. My memory's not great.
Yeah,
played football too many years, but I've heard from people that have gone up there to view them and watch them in September when the bulls are bugling and making noise and watching the herd sort of interact with one another, like that. It's awe-inspiring.
Sure.
And I've heard from people who don't really have a lot of exposure to nature that when they did that trip, it was like it was mind-blowing to them to sort of see that interaction, and that might be a great sort of entry point. I mean, it's such a great resource that we have, and it's unique. It's a little less unique than it used to be. I mean, there's more and more elk populations being reestablished throughout the East Coast now. Kentucky, I know, has some elk, and some different places, but Pennsylvania's that having that elk population is really just and that whole sort of area is built around the elk. Right, there's viewing centers and it's great. So that might be an entry point for some, just to kind of go up, see that in September, and
for sure.
and watch the animals interact with one another. And I've heard great things. I haven't done it yet. It's on the list of things to do.
You definitely need to check that out.
Yeah. Have you been up?
I have.
Well, talk about it.
Well, it was actually when I first started with the Game Commission. It was just like a HR field trip that we got to go on, and I've never seen an elk in the wild, And I remember we got up there at like 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and the regional director at the time took us out, and there was fog everywhere, and we just constant bugling, and it was really cool.
It sounds like I've heard that it sounds like dinosaurs, like what you would imagine
Kind
dinosaurs, like just hearing these like big, loud, boisterous bugles from like places from the fog.
I was surprised that a bugle sounded that way. I don't know. I never heard it before, and when I first heard it, I was like, "That's a bugle."
I've never heard it in person. I can't wait to experience it someday. Really so, it's on the list. It's on the list of things to do. So, I know one of the things you talked about exposure. You guys do have a youth cadet program that you run. Correct, through the commission?
The Junior Game Warden.
Junior Game Warden. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I know our regions are in charge of that.
Okay.
I don't have any hand in recruiting for that. That's usually with the local game wardens and I think the regional supervisors.
So I can speak a little bit on it, but so the Junior Game Warden camp is normally held in the summertime, I believe. and I think it's a multi-day event. I don't think it's just one day, but don't quote me on that. But if students go to that, they're exposed to a lot of different things that a game warden would do. They get to do morning PT, like they're a cadet in the academy, and all these different things. But it's a good way to get that interaction with some game wardens that are on different platforms in the agency. So you have the field warden, you have the warden supervisor, whatever. Those folks are normally there to give different perspectives on things, and some of the different units that we have within our agency that do different jobs and kind of what all those things entail are there for them to interact with and see.
Okay.
So
I think one thing I did want to, you brought up the deputy.
Yeah.
So could just talk a little bit about the difference between a deputy game warden, and is that process any different than a game warden?
Yeah, so I actually recruit for the full-time wardens, and the training school, actually, they have a whole deputy program that they are responsible for, and getting those applications and evaluating.
Yeah, so I'm actually the guy that
You're
does the deputy.
You're the guy.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so I'll take this one.
All right, cool. Yeah, absolutely.
So our deputy program is pretty seasoned. We've had deputies for quite some time, and in a nutshell, deputies are, if you want to call them part-time, they're volunteers, but they're part-time volunteer officers that work under a full-time game warden that is in a district. And the deputies are there to assist with whatever operations that need to get done within a patrol district. Their process is much different than a full-time officer. There's a lot more, the entire process just to go to the initial basic training is pretty long. It's at least a year, possibly more, depending on how things go. And then once they are commissioned as a deputy officer, they have certain restrictions and things that are in place until they have so much time on the job and have completed different tasks and different things like that. So just generally speaking, that's kind of the main difference.
Okay. Well, I know we're running a little short on time. Actually, we are probably over. And again, I could probably talk to you guys for about 2 hours. So we don't do 2 hours. Yeah, we can. Well, we definitely want to have you guys come back. We definitely want to talk about all the different other departments. So some of the forestry, land management, some of that stuff. Really expose our students to careers, and so that they can find maybe a place for them with the commission. You guys are a big employer in the state, and I think it would be. I think a lot of people just assume that it's just game wardens.
Right.
They don't associate the game commission with HR. Right. So if you're interested in a career in HR, they got them.
Yep.
We
do.
For sure. Right there's the proof. But when you are ready to start accepting applications for another class, if we do have students or we have people that are caretakers or whatever that are interested, where do they go to find the information? Where do they start the application process?
So we have a lot of information on our website. There's like a careers tab that you can click on the website, and we have a whole page just dedicated to state game warden careers, and what they should do to prepare themselves, how to apply. And then, of course, if they have any questions, they can definitely call into the HR office and ask for me, and I'll help them with anything that they need, answer any questions they might have. But the website, I think, would be the best.
Okay, great.
The best avenue, yep.
Did you think of your story?
I have.
Okay, great. We're going to end it on that. Absolutely.
Are you sure? Because I actually have two. So.
Well, pick one and then save the other one for later when you come back.
Yeah, so most of the one I'm thinking of is early in my career after I graduated and I started in Adams County. We interact with a lot of different people involved with wildlife, and I had this interaction with a falconer once, and falconers, are allowed to utilize birds of prey for hunting, and they're regulated in some regards with our agency. So we deal with a lot of injured wildlife. Obviously, someone has something injured, we normally get the call. So I was talking to this falconer one time about how to deal with birds of prey because, you know, they got those talons
Mhm.
that they like to try and get you with. So she gave me this advice that, in retrospect, was not the best advice. But she said, if you have an injured bird or animal, and you want to, because we normally have to transport them in our vehicles to wherever we're going to take them to.
Yeah.
If you don't have a cage or something to put it in, you can take a piece of like a sock or even pantyhose, and, you know, has the opening on both ends, slide it down over their body so their wings are just like, you know, against them, and they'll just sit there. I thought, okay, that's a great idea. So the one day I got a call.
Wait, now she told you that, and you thought that's a great idea?
Yeah, because sometimes you don't always have something to put these animals into.
Okay.
And then other times, if you're trying to get them in there, they can be a little bit resistant.
Okay.
And so this was like
I'd have been like, you want me to do a what with a what now?
Yeah. So I tried this the one day. I got a call about an injured red-tailed hawk at a house, and I went there, and it was injured in some regard, but it wasn't too bad. So sometimes these birds, they run into stuff when they're flying around, and they just get knocked silly. And they just need a place where you can go put them, where it's quiet, and they can just kind of like
their head clears up.
And that's what this was looking like. So this thing was a little out of it. So I got my sock out, slid it down over this bird. And red tails are relatively large.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not small birds. So I put it in my patrol vehicle in the back seat, and I'm driving down the road, down the highway. Nothing too crazy is going on. And I can see this bird back there, and it's just chilling out on the back seat. And then I look back at one point, and the sock is now laying on the floor. And this bird's looking at me, driving like, oh no. So at some point, it flies up into the front seat and is sitting on my passenger seat staring at me. And then it gets up on the dash, and as I'm driving down the highway, people are passing me, and there's this red tail watching me. And I'm trying not to move because I'm scared that this thing's going to freak out.
Yeah.
And they're looking at me like, what the heck is going on? I'm just waving like, hey, how's it going? Nothing to see.
Just nothing to see here, just a red-tailed hawk on the dashboard. No big deal.
I made it a quick journey to where we were going to stop and open the door and got it out there real quick. But,
well, definitely keep the other one in your back pocket. Love to have you guys back to maybe talk a little bit more about this, but again, about other careers with the Pennsylvania Game Commission. This was, again, very, very special podcast for me, just, you know, with my background and my experience in the outdoors and having interactions with the Game Commission. I don't want to say on a regular basis, but, you know, I have interactions with Game Wardens. Yeah. But do appreciate everything that you guys do with the commission, and really appreciate you guys coming in and sharing some information about the career with our students and our families. And hopefully, you know, we've inspired a few future Game Wardens through this podcast. But
definitely.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Love to have you back anytime. So.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And remember, everybody, that we are CCA.